Well, everybody, it's good to be back on here again. Honestly, as soon as I said the, countdown, going live, gosh, it all came back. It's great to see everybody. Probably not going to have very many people tuning in this afternoon, but that's okay because I have once again squandered my following and I have refused to pop back up here despite the amount of times I said that I would. So it's my own personal doing. Goes to show for those of you out there who used to come around every now and again saying, he only does it for the subs. Yeah, right. So I see a couple people in the chat, though, some very familiar faces. Chris Mizell, Nomad Avenue 6. It's great to see you two in the chat. Hopefully we get a couple more people to join. I want to see some familiar faces. Sir Sire, good to see you. Good afternoon, Naz. It's great to see everybody. We're going to do something kind of reminiscent to what... It's very warm in here for some reason. We're going to do something very reminiscent of what we did last year. Daniel Schwartz, good to see you. It's great to see everybody. Richard Worthen, welcome home indeed. We're back. We're so back. And I want to, now that we're done with, this hurricane season and flying around and being crazy, I really do. I swear this time, a sailor's promise since I'm in the Navy now, I really do want to start getting back into content on here and on a couple of other social medias I've had in the background, like my fitness page, car page, etc. But anyways, we're going to do what we did last year. And if you guys remember, we did in December, January, February, March, we did our preliminary glances at the hurricane season, and we actually had a couple of big wins from those videos. We actually more or less did fairly decent, I'll say fairly decent, for ourselves in predicting what 2024 was going to look like. I don't have everything built right now. I would like to go back and maybe build some graphics to show you all, going way back to the January, February, March time frame when we would do these discussions and see exactly, where we can pick and pull, I guess you could say, evidence that we did pretty decent in terms of forecasting what would happen in 2024. And to tell you the truth, I know it's way early and there could be some people who find this video and get a little upset about it, but we did the same thing last year. Some people wanted to carry on. I'm still seeing Tony thumbnails out there, so I don't know what that's going on, but we're going in. There's already some things I'm seeing in terms of next season that just automatically stand out to me. Last time I tuned in was during Ernesto, so it's been a little while. In fact, it's been quite a while. Ernesto was way back in the day, especially with the backloaded peak season that we had after Ernesto, Francine, and then while I was away in Virginia, we had Helene. Everyone knows Milton here in Central Florida. But all right, so as you can see, hurricane season is no more. There is nothing out there. Look at that. There's the handy-dandy Epic Pen. I missed the Epic Pen. It's so easy to manipulate. There is nothing out there on the immediate horizon. There were some folks honing in on this area. I don't know why. That doesn't look like much of anything. That's not going to do anything spectacular or fantastic for anyone. Maybe some kind of a stable wave forming on the extreme tail end of that frontal system that's out there across the Atlantic. But then we're also watching what's happening over the United States. We have a deep occluded low that's moving through the Great Lakes right now. You can kind of see it right in through there, kind of crossing the upper Great Lakes into Ontario, headed up towards James Bay. Looks like there might be some triple point cyclogenesis, triple point low development going on up near Pennsylvania, getting into New York State, just to the immediate, kind of moving over Manhattan Island. And then you can see our jet stream down over the south. That's helping to fuel an area of disturbed and enhanced weather activity down across the Gulf Coast and the southeast. Not an El Nino pattern, so not expecting a tremendous amount of severe weather with that, but a lot of cold air indeed. So the tropics are turned off, but there's already a couple of big things that, again, really jump out at me. And I want to start to walk you through those things, not only as a means of getting you all up to speed, whoever wants to tune in still to this dead of a channel here, but also I want to talk a little bit and collect my own thoughts and kind of archive them through these live streams. So first and foremost, this is where we are right now. This is obviously the NOAA Coral Reef. These are the anomalies. We're very familiar with this. And you can see that if you remember all the preseason hype for 2024, there's a couple things going on here. First of all, it looks like our neutral has transitioned to a La Nina. We're in a weak La Nina right now, which is completely bonkers compared to what we were predicting this time last year, saying that we were going to be in a potential super La Nina. Some were saying historic. That never came to be. And the horseshoe has reappeared in the Atlantic. Now, the reason I bring up the horseshoe is because I think we're going to see some weird amalgamation of next hurricane season reminiscent of 2023. So, to set the stage, we all know this channel got started in 2023. It was an El Nino season, and things were weird. We had the 4th most active season on record, despite the El Nino conditions, but we also had very, very hot water parked right up against Africa and Europe that helped to stir lots of development out there in the main development region, the subtropical Atlantic, and we even had Dawn hanging out in the mid-latitude Atlantic, which is crazy. This season, obviously, in 2024, we had hot water everywhere, but if you remember, a lot of the hot water was focused closer to the Antilles. It's still down there in the Caribbean, and if you look at the anomalies right now, despite the frontal systems, even the Gulf of Mexico is still fairly above average. I'm looking right in there. If you guys can see from where you're watching, there's a lot of hot anomaly. I mean, it's cool. It has cooled down, but in terms of how warm it is on average, it's well up there. It's still well up there. And now what we're going to be watching is what manifests itself from the Azores down into the subtropical Atlantic. And I'll show you what all the climate models are thinking as we go through time. There's a look at the ocean heat for the current state of the Atlantic and the Caribbean basin. Lots of it's still down there in the actual Caribbean Sea, which is wild to see. It has come down tremendously in comparison to what we were seeing back in May, June, July, obviously because we're starting to get those increases in not only our trade winds out of the east, but also the winds coming off of North and Central America as a response of troughing, cold fronts, the movement of cold air through that area. But this is still going to be an area we're going to watch as we go through spring and then eventually the start of the hurricane season, because another puzzle piece that I'm seeing is very interesting, brought to us courtesy by the European seasonal model. Here's a look at the latest CDAS Nino 3.4 index, and essentially what that fancy jargon means is this is what the temperatures are doing in the 3.4 region of the ENSO out there in the Pacific. And you can see it says a negative 0.9, which is getting closer to a moderate La Nina, but the rest of the ENSO regions are still at about negative 0.5. I think the 1 and 2 is only at 0.3 right now, so we're kind of going, back and forth, if you will. This is where it starts to get very interesting, though. Let me move my head out of the way so you can see. I know this looks like a very, very, very intense-looking statistics equation from a math class, but what we're looking at here is below normal, above average anomalies in terms of whether or not, or probabilities, I should say, in terms of if we'll be in a El Nino, a La Nina, or a neutral. And as we go forward in time, this is a long-range look. Watch what happens up through here. So we dip into a potential La Nina as we get into the very tail end. Obviously, we're just about there. The very tail end of 2025, and then the first quarter of 2026. But then what I'm paying attention to is March, April, May. Look at what happens to our temperatures here, which doesn't typically happen. And I'm very much so, for those of you who are here in the chat who have been watching me for over a year now, you know that I'm very steadfast in using the term weird or extreme or unusual. A lot of folks love to plaster that all over their thumbnails. This just got worse, or this just got weird. This, in my personal and humble opinion, is weird to see us barely getting into a La Nina after all the climate models were predicting an explosive La Nina development, but then it crashes almost immediately and just in time for the hurricane season, April, May, June. Here, all the way through the season, we go back to a cool neutral. Couple that with some of the oceanic graphics I'm going to show you, and things could get a little weird out there in the Atlantic once again. Here's a look at our latest CFS, the Climate Forecast System forecast, and you can see we are expecting, I think this is a little overcooked though, this is expecting a moderate La Nina to set in as we get into the rest of December and then early January. I don't think we're going to cool that much. I really don't. The CFS was the one that was very bullish this past winter season into the summer, talking about a historic La Nina. If you guys remember the charts, it had it going from here all the way down to pretty much the bottom before we rocketed back up to at least a moderate La Nina. So I think this is cooked. I don't believe this is going to happen. We're probably going to bottom out at a 0.8, maybe a -1, right in through there. But what I'm really paying attention to is what happens after April and then into July, which is already the 2025 hurricane season. Notice we're back up into that neutral phase, whether it be a warmish neutral, a straight-up neutral, or a cool neutral, which is very interesting to me. If you look at the progression of this chart, we went La Nina for what feels like 5 minutes, and then we bounced back out of it. And if I show you the ONI index, which is just the oscillation index for over the last... You know what? Let's just pull that up. I'll go ahead and pull that up now so this way I can reinforce what it is that I'm saying. The ONI index for ENSO. Here we go. If you look, most of the time we get a La Nina, see this? It goes on for a while. DJF, JFM, FMA, etc. Obviously, these little acronyms here, December, January, February, March, February, and so on and so forth. Back in 1954, we went into almost a 2-year La Nina. Then if you look here in 1964, we went on to at least 3/4 of a year of at least a decent La Nina. In 1970, about a year and a half worth of La Nina. 1973, we went on a 3-year La Nina. We always typically observe La Ninas. So wait, here we go. Here's one we might be able to use as a bit of an analog for next hurricane season. 2016, we had a La Nina built in for about 5 months. We're still going to, I think 2024, even though the charts suggest we're just now getting into La Nina, you can make a case that by the end of September, we were already in that La Nina. So September, October, November, December to January. So a 5 to 6 window, 6-month window. So we can probably use 2016 and 2017, possibly even 2018 as just some ENSO analogies. Technically, analogs for this next upcoming hurricane season. So that's very interesting. So we did have a short spell of a, Sorry, I paused because I'm thinking again. And I was going to hit y'all with a Christmas song. Do you see what I see? This gives me chills. Because if you all remember back in December, January of last year, this year, for my big-time followers out there, I'm talking to you, Mick and Marley. It's great to see you. Nomad Avenue 6, April, Nancy, everybody out there. If you remember, and you can type it in the chat, I would encourage you to do so. I did say, and we all unanimously agreed, 2024 could look a lot like 2004 with that 20-year rhythm. We did say that. We covered that multiple times. We suggested that Florida could get multiple hurricanes this year, and it did. I'm low-key getting chills right now because look at the year that came after 2004. Short La Nina. 2005. That's very spooky. That is very spooky. 2005, we had a La Nina creep in and establish itself in October, November, December, and it was gone by the time we got out of winter into spring. Good Lord, if honestly, you know what's even crazier about that, and I'm being as authentic as possible right now, what's even crazier about that is I've already had conversations at News 6 looking at some of the climate data that suggests we just might have what looks very similar to a 2005 type of setup out there. I will publish an article, not write an article. I will publish an article if 2025 looks reminiscent of 2005. I will literally go bonkers and write a whole book on all of these findings that we found together. So before we get into that, here's a look at all of our standardized anomalies. This is going to be the anomaly for the ENSO regions out there all the way through to 2026. Look at how that neutral pattern just holds on. And if you notice, this is the end of 2024. This is all of 2025. And then this is the early periphery of 26, holding on to that potential weak Niña but cool neutral phase, which is wild to imagine. And the rest of our models do suggest the same thing. This is a more consolidated month-to-month look at it, holding steady. It doesn't go up, it doesn't go down. There's no La Nina, there's no real El Nino in sight, which is wild. And then this is the forecast as of right now. I know a lot of you guys remember us pulling this up to take a look at it on a month-to-month basis. Notice that March, April, May, June, May, June, July, June, July, August, we're in that neutral phase again. So that is very weird. I'm going back to the ONI because 2005 was in that neutral phase. Wow. Okay, we could possibly be onto something. Let's get into some of the big picture pattern here. All right, so this is our climate data. And I'll start with the CanSIPS first. Everybody loves the CanSIPS. That's what everyone leaned in heavily on for this past hurricane season. And I will say this, even though I'm getting kind of woo about, the hurricane season and whatnot and the different patterns that I should be taking notes. This is why I'm glad that we're doing a live stream on this today, because now I can go back to this and refer to it and take some notes and keep compiling this data. But anyways, I want to show you where we came from, because already I'm noticing a night and day difference. That's why the title of the video suggests that this could be a very interesting hurricane season. 2023 was crazy. Very active, very little landfalls, but still very active for an El Nino. It was the opposite of what typically happens. 2024, we never got the La Nina, but we still had very quality tropical cyclones out there, and a large majority of them, if you guys remember, did form in this general area, which is what we were looking for. We had talked back in December, January, February of 23 into 24, and we mentioned we were going to be looking down in through here for the greatest activity of development, or the greatest chance that we see things wandering through that could start to develop. If you recall, even folks like Ernesto, Debbie started down in this general area, which was my hotspot. So again, taking wins where we can, keeping people ahead of the curve. But let's rewind. This is what had everybody freaking out about this last hurricane season. If you look, this is June of 2024. This is July, August, September, October, and then November. Why is my phone... Oh, there we go. I accidentally started playing my live stream on my phone. Now, let's go to our latest data. So we get into, you can see the La Nina wintertime. It's going to be dry down here. I'm not excited about that. It's going to be dry down here in the southeast, very little rain. But then look at May. We're already starting to see the anomalies. June, look at the difference here. Look at how a lot of the stuff, just like we saw with Beryl, with Alberto, with Chris, a lot of the stuff tends to hug Central America and go up into Texas. And then look at this potential recurvature pattern here already. So that's something that stands out to me very heftily. But then this is where it starts to get a little eerie, and this is where it starts to get a little interesting in my opinion. This is July now. Huge suggestion that we're going to have a weakened Bermuda Azores high. Again, reminiscent of 2023. So it looks like we could, and this is why I suggest we might have more activity this upcoming hurricane season than we did in 2024. Because if you recall, in 2004, we had a lot of the hurricanes, just like in 24, move off towards the west. They got into the Caribbean, they got into the Bahamas, they especially got into the Gulf of Mexico. We only had, I believe, 3 fish storms this hurricane season. Gordon, Kirk, and Leslie. That was it. We only had 3 fish storms, right? Or was it 4? I'm not counting Ernesto as a fish storm. It crossed the 60-degree longitude line and hit people. That's not a fish storm. We had Kirk curves. Joyce was out there. Leslie, okay, so 4 fish storms. 4 out of 18 storms were fish storms this hurricane season. But this is where it starts to get a little... That's why the thumbnail, if you guys looked closely on that thumbnail, I have red shading to where I think we're going to need to watch this hurricane season. And it's here. Which, again, now that we saw the ONI index, the ONI from Climate Prediction Center really does have me wanting to stick to my guns and say we could very well see a repeat of something similar to 2005 this upcoming hurricane season. Because notice in August and then especially September, we have a huge suggestion that there's going to be a lot of activity, but it will stay out to sea. But then August, we have a lot of moist anomalies down there in the southeast, the mid-Atlantic, and up the east coast. September, those anomalies hang out as they do in October. Then November, it's Jover. That's it. We're done. Just like we were this year with Sarah. Now, let me start to go through some of the features that I'm noticing that do stand out to me and that have me a little on the concern side. And I'm going to start off with our 500 millibar height anomaly. Actually, you know what? Let's rewind. Let's go to the mean sea level pressure anomaly because this shows it better. So as you can see, weakened Bermuda Azores high. You can see lower anomalies even though we have a 1025 Azores high sitting out there in the Atlantic. But then what really jumps out at me is this, and I told Jonathan Kagis at News 6, that scares me, this right here. Look at that stronger than ordinarily higher pressure up there. I know we don't have a high pressure stamped there because we don't typically have a semi-permanent pressure system there like the Bermuda Azores high. The Azores and the Bermuda high, the subtropical high out there never goes anywhere. It's always there, whether it's back to the east, west, central, etc. But that is a lot of higher pressure ridging up over Atlantic Canada in the northeast, which again, that jumps out at me as a bit of an alarm bell. Even more so into July and then especially August. Look at that. September, kind of the same, and then October, it really reinforces it. So what I'm wondering... And finally, last but not least, before I tie it into a big bundle, look at the anomalies. Look at how weird those... That's crazy heat out there that the CanSIPS is predicting in the subtropical Atlantic. So I'm genuinely wondering if this hurricane season is going to be categorized by fish storms like so, because of all the hot anomalies out there weakening our Bermuda Atlantic high, but then these cooler anomalies reinforcing higher pressure up over Quebec, Newfoundland, parts of Ontario, the northeast United States, that could possibly kick crap, for lack of a better term, back east. Could this very well be the season to where East Florida, the Southeast, the Mid-Atlantic, and even the Northeast need to pay attention? Because if you remember back in 2020, and the reason I say that is in 2023, this big old hot dome was here. It was parked up against Spain, Portugal, Europe, parts of Northwest Africa. And as a result, if you recall, every single one of our storms, even Lee, did something like this. So if you move that warm bubble further to the west just a little bit, and you also move our pressure systems and our steering features just a bit to the west, that yellow arrow turns into something like this. So it really does make me wonder if 2023 was Fish Central, 2024 was Gulf and Florida Havoc, and now if 2025 we could possibly see East Coast situations and a bit of the eastern and southeastern Gulf of Mexico being trouble spots. Florida, unfortunately, is in the bullseye either way you slice it. If we have something coming in from the east, just like we saw in 2005, it could possibly cross over the peninsula into the Gulf of Mexico. So, you know, these are all the little puzzle pieces that I'm working very feverishly to put together. And if you look here, you can also see in the upper level pattern there's ridging, upper level ridging up over eastern Canada, and it becomes even stronger by the time we get into August, September, and then October. Look at all this dominant ridging out there where we really don't need it. And then it finally goes away as we get into November, which is typical. That's exactly what happened this last month into December. We've had a trough sitting out over the eastern United States. That makes sense. But in the meantime, notice how we have ridging sitting along the east coast. And that's something we were lacking through 2024. If I go back to February, look at the difference here. There's April, May, June. See how it's gone? July, gone. August, much weaker. And then even into September, there's nothing. October, there's nothing. So, very interesting. And then I go back to the mean sea level pressure anomaly. And look at how, for all of the last hurricane season, we had lower pressure pretty much everywhere. And we had even more low pressure, or at least more anomalous low pressure, down over the southeast and up there over eastern Canada. You go back to now, and that's totally different. Very different. We're predicting higher anomalies where we don't typically see them. So I don't know. I'm going to be very, very interested to see what happens with our Climo data as we go further and further through January, February, March, and then finally once everybody starts popping off their preseason forecasts. Here is the NMME. This just came out. The NMME is kind of showing the same thing. If you go to June, starting to see some anomalies. July, August, see this? And I think the NMME does an even better job at showing it. You can see a little bit of a recurvature signal here and through there, suggesting that whatever doesn't stay weak, whatever doesn't get picked up early, or whatever doesn't get picked up late, will end up riding the west side of our weakened subtropical Atlantic high. But then still, in August, look at all these precip anomalies for Florida up the eastern seaboard. That's as far as it goes out. We can't go into September or October just yet, but it's crazy that both, let's see, there we go. The CanSIPS and the NMME are showing the same thing. Crap, I just hit the wrong, but there we go. I have it superimposed over one another, and you can see big recurvature signal with some potential issues for the east coast of the U.S. and the southeast. And then the latest CFS, I'll show you that as well before we get into our European model data, the seasonal data. There's June, same thing. July, August, showing a bit more of a recurvature signal. And then September, look at that. You can see it plain as day right there. And then there's that recurvature signal. So this is something I'm very, very much so going to be watching like a hawk, and I can't wait to start doing our repetitive outlooks again, just like we did last hurricane season. Finally, here's a look at the European seasonal data, one of our favorite models. The Euro did okay for itself for this upcoming hurricane season. I think the European model was the one that first backed off of our strong La Nina, and then the rest of the models followed suit. I believe it was the Euro seasonal that stopped the whole, we're going to go into a massive La Nina. Then we had the CanSIPS stop it, and then finally the CFS and everybody else caught up. This is April, May, and then look at June already. June looks very interesting, showing already a huge amount of precip anomalies for Florida and up the east coast before the actual tropical Atlantic can get started. So I really do think if I had to take some very, very, very early stabs at what next hurricane season could look like, I really do think that it's going to be a shift. If I show you, I'm going to literally jump out of my chair if I pull up 2005 and we see recurves and a lot of stuff right in that eastern quadrant of the United States. So let me first start by pulling up the 2024 hurricane season, and I love this map a little bit more so because it's a little easier to see. So what I'm thinking is, if you look, a lot of our activity was in fact here. A lot of our activity, there's our 4 fish storms, 1, 2, 3, 4, that finally went up and out, but that's neither here nor there. A lot of our activity was focused right in through here. In my very early personal and professional opinion, the key takeaway from this video is I think that this area is going to shift to here for next hurricane season. I really do. I really do think we'll see a large amount of our activity, impactful activity, mind you, not just the activity in general, impactful activity somewhere in through here. If I had to highlight it, I would say from Virginia all the way through to East Florida, maybe getting up into the eastern Gulf of Mexico. Whereas if you look for 2024, it was much further this way. It was more biased to the left. I think we're going to bias it a little bit towards the right. With a lot of our activity, we're definitely going to see a decent amount flare up off the CVs and go up and out. We're going to have another 2023 era-ish, give or take. And if I show you the Atlantic here for the SSTs, you can see that the Euro is also thinking we're going to have a very large hot bubble out there over the subtropical Atlantic, just like the CanSIPS is. So our models are definitely already kind of in tune with one another. I can switch us over to the global view, and you can see that it is also expecting us to kind of rebound out of La Nina to a cool neutral again. And then we'll have to watch up there off of the East Coast, because there's that cool pocket that could suggest... Can I have my pen back? Thank you. There's that cool pocket that could suggest reinforcing high pressure. Now, before we wrap up, I'm going to go ahead. Yeah, Daniel Schwartz, I was going to say, I want to see 2005. First off, let's go to 2004, and I bet you 10 to 1, if we look at the general activity for 2004, it looks almost exact. Oh my God, yeah, look at that. It looks almost exactly like 2024. Wow! Almost exactly. I'm literally mind blown right now. We had 1, 2, 3, 4 fish storms in 2004. We had precisely 4 fish storms in 2024, and if you look, a large majority of our activity was focused right in through here. Good God. I swear, things act on patterns. Things genuinely act on pattern. Now we got to see 2005. We got to see 2005. We have to. Wow. Yeah. Yeah. This is getting a little... I know Halloween is far from over, but... I mean, yeah, Halloween is done and gone, but look at this. We had a lot of activity focused right in through here, whereas in 2024, we were more so here. And look at all the activity that we had out across the Atlantic. So there's that possible recurvature signal that we're already seeing on the CFS, the CanSIPS, and the North American multi-model, and the Euro. Wow. Wow. And then look how we had a lot of crossover features through the Straits, through southern Florida, that unfortunately ended up being Rita and Katrina. Am I suggesting we could have a Katrina and a Rita this hurricane season coming up? God, I hope not. I'm not going to go as far as to predict something like that. But do I see things continuing west if they get hung up by whatever is up here dominating the pattern? That was crappy. Let me go ahead and go back. Whatever's up here dominating the pattern while our Atlantic high is sandwiched back up in this area, yeah. Wow, yeah, we barely had a Texas landfall. Barely had a Texas landfall in 05. You could argue that Rita was Texas, but that looks more like the Louisiana-Texas border, kind of like Beaumont, Texas. Then we had a couple of our Albertos and Chris's. We had, obviously, this was the year of Earl and Emily. Emily and, Dennis. This was the year of Dennis and Emily, the once earliest Cat 5s of the season, till Beryl took that record and smashed it. Yeah, so not a spitting image, but definitely a very, very reminiscent trend here. You can see 2004, stronger Atlantic high, primarily focused on the southeast United States and the Gulf of Mexico, with a lot of those close calls for the Caribbean. And then 2005, open season. So there is just, if you're tuning in or just discovering this video, there you can see it in the lines here in the graphics. There is some gravity behind what it is we're talking about. Of course, it's pure speculation. I love to theorize and look at all the breadcrumbs leading up to the hurricane season, but you can't really argue with this. You really can't. I mean, look at the NMME here, for example. Lots of activity down and through here, and then plenty of it out there in the Atlantic to recurve up and out. And then 2005, you see the same thing. Lots of activity in the subtropical Atlantic, and then lots of activity down there for up the eastern seaboard, down in the southeast United States. And then 2004, a lot more cut and dried. That actually does blow my mind. I'm not kidding. That was a very genuine reaction that we literally had 4 fish storms this season. Gordon, Leslie, Kirk, Joyce, and then we had 4 fish storms in 2004. That is wild. Mind-blowing. There has to be a pattern here. There really does. There has to be a pattern. Something that just needs to be cracked that'll really help improve our seasonal forecasting. And for all we know, we might be onto something. These How Goes It live streams and videos just might actually be setting the stage for some very intricate research that can go on over the next couple of years in monitoring the progression of these hurricane seasons and our preseason forecasts. So I don't know. I mean, I do know, but at the same time, I don't know because we are still far away. Things can change. I want to get that disclaimer out there to everybody. And yes, I'm sorry for not paying attention to that, but definitely thank you, April, and thank you, Silver Steel, for the wonderful donations. April says, thank you for updating us back on your home channel. It's been very nice seeing you here again. I hope we see you more. Hear more. This channel will always be home to a lot of us. Oh, it is home. As soon as I pulled it up and I did the 3, 2, 1, we are live, it all came back. I had flashbacks to when this setup was in another room, when we were talking about Idalia, when we were talking about the 23 hurricane season, doing these types of videos for 2024. This year was similar to 2004. Yes, I completely agree, Silver Steel. And thank you again, both of you, for the $25 and $20 donation. So that's all she wrote. We're going to go ahead and wrap up. We're going to start doing at least these discussions on a month-to-month basis. Probably aim to do them around the same time, maybe between the 8th and the 10th of each month, because that's when all of our seasonal data will have updated. The CanSIPS comes out on the 1st, the Euro seasonal on about the 5th, and then the NMME comes out on the 8th. So we'll probably end up rocking with a live stream depending on the day of the week and what my schedule looks like on the 8th or the 9th at the latest, maybe the 10th depending on how things are going of each month, so we can start to get these pre-seasonal looks in circulation and hopefully start building some momentum back to this channel. If you weren't here in the very beginning, I did say that going into 2025, one of my resolutions is to slowly but surely get back into all of my personal content creation, not just the Weather Center either, but old fitness pages that I had, old car pages and car content I used to put out as well, just kind of getting back to my roots now that I'm settled and in a groove with News 6. I'm not flying around everywhere, minus the holiday season. I've been doing all kinds of weird shows, morning, afternoon, evening, morning, evening, afternoon, because all of us obviously are taking vacations and taking advantage of the holiday travel. But you guys are genuinely amazing. Small, intimate group today, but dang, that chat revenue, thanks to April and Silver Steel, is a beautiful thing. It's such a blessing, and it's all thanks to you all that we're here. I attribute the fact that I'm even at News 6 to you guys. So I will never, ever forget this channel. And it has, I've been very busy being thrown around between digital and television, and it's a dream come true, but it does. At the back of my mind, I'm never going to forget this channel. I could be gone for months, and in the back of my mind, I'll always have not only that tick to say welcome back to the Weather Center, but also that tick of I miss everybody. I miss these conversations. I miss this more informal platform. I miss the casualness behind it, and I miss just chatting and talking to everybody like we're all human beings shooting the breeze about weather. And I know we can do that at News 6, but obviously it's a News 6. There's always a different stride, a different tone with it. TRG Tornado, thank you so much for tuning in as well. Thanks for the stream, Naz. Glad to see you were doing all right and return to streaming. Have a great rest of your day. And I'm very glad you could watch as well. It's great to see your username popping up. 'Tis the season. I know we're going to be getting into a probably weird as well tornado season because of neutral to La Nina as opposed to El Nino last year with all of our massive outbreaks. But we'll see. We'll see what happens as we get into the end of December and January, February. Still can't live in my home, Kevin. I hope that you've at least made some progress. That comment right there sums up the 2024 hurricane season. I can't believe that. Ethan's Life, good to see you, bud. Great to see all the familiar names and faces. Yorkie Foreverboard, Richard Worthen. I saw Ken pop in a little while ago as well. A lot of familiar faces, a lot of lovely familiar faces and profiles in here. It's great. It's always great coming back to everybody, our little neighborhood, Weather Center neighborhood. Honestly, April, I agree. I don't give myself enough grace to know exactly how much has happened this year. Rejoined the military, earned my dream career, built this channel, hit our milestone of 10,000 subs, slowly pooping that away because I haven't been on here, but we did it. We did a lot. We did a lot this year. I'm saying we, not just me. We did a lot. All of us did. Olivia, I think the severe weather season is going to be very interesting depending on what our oscillations do out there across the globe. Not only the ENSO, but just what happens with our AO, our PNA, and then also the PDO off the Pacific coastline of the United States and so on and so forth. So that's something else I think I'm going to add to the docket to do some homework while we're away from the hurricane season. I did a lot of that last hurricane season, and it helped us tremendously. It paid back in dividends, so I think I'm going to start to go back through and get my old handy-dandy notebook back out and start taking notes on researching the different oscillating patterns across the planet. Because there has to be. If we really have an 05 kind of repeat this year, if we're meeting again by November, December of next year, and we're sitting back like, good Lord, that was 05 all over again, there has to be something. There has to be something in the matrix that ties it all together. I really do not think, there's no way in heck that there was just a big coincidence that 20 years after 04, 2024 looked very similar to 2004. There's no way. I refuse to believe that it's just how goes it, luck of the draw. There's no way. There has to be a missing link out there to where we can connect all this together and really hammer out our hurricane season forecasting as opposed to just plastering everything with look out, watch out, and all the hypey thumbnails that you see. Mick and Marley, you're absolutely right. You heard it here first. I remember you said the exact same thing about a year ago. We heard it here first, and then 2024 came through, rocking everybody. But Merry Christmas, everybody. I'm going to make it a point. I promise I'll make it a point to do another live stream or another video or two before Christmas, especially since I do finally have some much-deserved time off coming up. I will have extra free time on my hands to get on this channel and do some more discussions, whether it be just frontal-related, severe weather-related, or something, just to touch base with everybody. I cannot keep up these long-winded absences because it's going to kill this channel. YouTube is going to shut it down. Not literally shut it down, but it's just going to rip every bit of algorithm magic from it, and we're never going to get anybody back. And I know there's a huge audience on here who loves what we've done together to build this community. So thank you all so much for tuning in. I hope you had a fantastic Thanksgiving. If I haven't had a chance to talk to you on News 6, but here on the Weather Center, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what Christmas has in store for us in the next couple of weeks. This whole year has ripped by. Looking at the date on my computer, I can't believe it's December 9th already. December 9th. Sheesh. It really reminds you that you need to force yourself sometimes to rip the e-brake on your day-to-day and just take inventory. And that's partially what I did here today, was take inventory on everything that we've done for the last year and a half, starting with this channel and you all amazing people out there, because things have been going. Things have been going. Things have been flying day to day, week to week, month to month, holiday to holiday. I remember doing the Halloween coverage last year and the Thanksgiving messages and the Christmas messages and all that, and I can't believe we're doing it again already. It feels like that. Yadira, blessings. You're the best of the best. Thank you so much for that wonderful comment. And yeah, take care, everybody. Thank you for everybody who took some time out of their afternoon to join me today on the Weather Center. It's great talking with everybody. We're going to see what happens over the coming months. But until then, it's going to feel really good to say this again. I haven't said this in a while. Before I go, if anything, I would say sometime maybe Thursday or Friday of this upcoming week, I will do another stream to talk weather with everybody. Maybe. If not, I'll maybe do a short video or something, but I'll be back. I really want to start getting more repetitious, if that's even a word on this channel. Twilight Firefly 100, good to see you on here as well. Have a good one, folks. Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. And as always, thank you for all, David. Of course, it's very good to see you back on here. Kevin, blessings to you, positive energy. If you need anything, please feel free to reach out. Even if it's just to vent, rant, and rave about what 2024's hurricane season did to you, but just know that we're in your corner rooting for you, and I hope that you can get back on your feet sooner than later, especially as we go through the holiday season. And I'll see you guys again very soon here at home base on the Weather Center. But until then, this is Weather Center Nazario, signing out.